And joining me now via Zoom, he is the director of Till Death Do Us Part, Mr. Timothy Woodward Jr. Welcome, Timothy.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for doing this. I know you're doing a bunch of these today, and they can probably be pretty exhausting. So I think I caught you pretty early in the day while you're fresh.
Yeah.
You haven't answered these questions a million times already. But I saw the film, and we got a lot to talk about. My first question is, what was the genesis of this movie? Like, how did it come about?
I was looking actively for something to do with Natalie Byrne. So I was just kind of scrolling through scripts. And then when this script came across, it actually had a Def Leppard quote written inside of it from Love Bites, which is automatically like the irony of that was pretty awesome. And so when I started reading it, it was a little more straightforward. And I started thinking about, well, look, if this had a lot of comedy and we added some little bit of edgy blood and some elements to it, this could be really cool and it could be fun. And I was looking for something fun to do. So that's kind of how it came about.
There's a lot of action in this movie, and I think the strong point is the action. There's a lot of fights and things like that. And what I was curious, you approaching this as a director, what like how are you able to capture the fights the way you did, which I think looks really great. Can you give me like what your philosophy of action is, kind of what makes a great action scene?
One of the things is having talented actors who can do their own stunts or performers, who can back up the actors. In this case, we had a lot of amazing actors who could also do stunts. Natalie did 99% of her own stuff. DY Seau. We also had Arnold Chun, who was a great stunt coordinator. But I think one of the main things for me is, we did a lot of previews in this ahead of time, which is a lot of trial runs, but they did it in parks. They were choreographed. When we got there on the day, I kind of just threw a lot of that out the window because you're looking at the room and you're seeing, what do I've got to work with? How would it be? So to me, it's always, each person has to have their own plan, their own wants, their own desires. So Natalie's character was trying to escape. The other one was trying to get her. So you have cat and mouse. And when you create that, it's not just kill, kill. It's more of a run. And then I like to also use whatever's in the room available. In one room, we had a bookshelf, we had a bed. She's throwing the books across, using anything that she can. In the garage, there's the shovel, there's the chainsaw, there's, any kind of thing that we can find that we can use when I walk in a room. I like to look at that and try to, make it work off of that. And then also I think that, one thing is not close, choppy cuts, going wide. We used the 12 millimeter lens, even though we shot anamorphic the entire film, we used for some of the fight scenes a 12 millimeter spherical lens so you could really capture the background. You could see them, you could actually see the hits and you could see their faces. And I also think that there's something magical when you see someone get hit and you see the hit land and you see their face turn towards the camera or their reaction for it. So you get the feeling of it in one shot, opposed to hit, change, punch, go back and stuff like that. So, just a few things that we were thinking about going in.
I'm glad that you mentioned people doing their own stunts because I did. I was looking for doubles in this. I was looking for points where you don't maybe see the actor's face, or because we've all seen they're like shot from above or they're like shot in the dark, and you can
Yeah.
kind of tell it's another gal with a wig on or something. The other thing I thought about the action is it's very violent and brutal, like it, and the fights don't. Most of the fights anyway don't go on forever, like some martial arts fights can in movies. So some I had to say I had to kind of look away from some of the
Cool.
violence, especially when you've got a young woman getting hit in the face. That was a
Yeah.
little much. Can you kind of talk about, because a lot of movies like this they could go with a more, well, for lack of a better word, cartoony kind of over the top violence. Why did you decide to go with this more realistic, brutal type of tone?
Well, we were thinking in the beginning, the film is already super stylized no matter what. So each fight has its own kind of style, and the film is very kind of, stylized, genre world, little Tarantino-ish, it's got that feel to it. So with the fights, one thing we wanted is we didn't want to make them feel again too choreographed, too, so there's some stuff that's sloppy. I mean, she's jumping on his head, doing stuff, but then they both fall down. They're both sliding across the floor. It's reaching for, it's grabbing, it's not, so we wanted to add a little flair to it, but also again make them very brutal. And make them, as if you notice, as the character actually goes along in the movie, the bride, and she starts kind of unhinging a little bit more and getting away from necessarily the escape, which is still ultimately her plan, but like into this everyone's going down mode. The fights actually get more brutal, and it gets more up until our final fight, which is pretty, we did some cool stuff there, and it's very raw. But that's one thing that I wanted them all to feel raw and not choreograph, punch, react. So we changed a lot of stuff on the fly to make it feel very raw and very, animalistic. So you see the bride just, when she's got to muster the strength, she screams and like just comes at them, full force, these big ass men, because that's what we felt like she would have to do. If she can't run, she's got to just charge.
Well, of course, there's a lot of blood in the movie. And you don't do that thing where, like, say at the end of a superhero movie, like at the end of the Black Widow movie, Scarlett Johansson looks amazing. She's in the field and she looks like, she's fresh and beautiful. Your heroine looks beat up at the end of this movie.
Yeah, we put her through it. I mean, and that was the feel. If you notice also, she's doing all this with no shoes. She has no shoes the entire film, just as a little detail. So she's walking across the roof, going back and forth, no shoes, running across the rocks, kicking, punching, fighting, getting her feet stepped on, so she's doing it with no shoes. There's blood, there's bruises, there's bangs. She's getting hit because we wanted you to feel like that, this character was going through a lot. We threw her in everything possible. And, you can't, I mean, at one point, she has to completely wash off, her face because it's just completely there. And so, yeah, we wanted to make sure that was a part of it. We didn't want to do like blood for blood's sake, because we could have done it a lot more. We have a lot of stuff that we could have went to extreme if we wanted to. Some body parts that get stabbed that shouldn't. We could have added tons of blood there. We could have had blood in, different places, but we didn't. But we wanted to make sure that when we did, it was effective and you saw her, going through this at the end. And also there's this juxtaposition about a bride on her wedding day. It's the happiest day of her life. And she's, in the white dress and, beautiful and flowing. And our bride is like just My Bloody Valentine,
Most of the time in like, well, you see fights and things. There's a lot of fights in superhero movies.
Yeah.
But nobody ever looks like they're really getting hurt. Like they seem to be cutting on each hit and going back and forth, which is like a popular style. Was there kind of in the edit was that something that you decided later where you were like, we're not going to cut on every hit. We're going to linger there for a moment.
Yeah. One fortunate thing is that we kind of shot it where you almost couldn't, even if we wanted to, because we really shot wide on a lot of stuff. And a lot of this stuff was set up just like, I don't want to give away too much, but there's a fight with the end fight. And there's a moment where the camera's locked on the back and you see the hit and Natalie's face, just the bride just turns right into it. And that was the only shot of that. We didn't do it and cover it, from the other angle like you would normally do, because I didn't want to get into a spot where I wasn't using these certain hits that were meant to showcase that. Because to me, it wasn't about the hit. It was about seeing her face whipping the camera after the hit and dropping out that I felt like was going to be effective. So we didn't even cover that from the other side, for example. So there was a lot of stuff like that was just designed that was going to be that way. And that was it. There's another example when Natalie does a split and she does something with the split. She goes up, there's a knife. And you see, that was never shot from the other side or for the other guy, because it was all about that moment. We wanted to stay in that.
There seems to have been a resurgence now of the sort of lower or mid-budget action films that are rated R. They're not this sort of sugar-coated PG-13 type of thing. Was there any film or any sort of anything that told you that you had the license to make a fully rated R film and not have to dumb it down for PG-13?
No, I don't think so. I think what it was more for me is in today's marketplace, number one, it's very hard to stand out as an independent. So I wanted to do something completely different. And number two, I just thought about, there's humor in it. There's like ways of doing it. And I thought, how, let's stand out, let's make something. And I just kind of went balls to the walls with whatever I felt at the moment. And I just didn't hold back. And luckily, I was able to release it the way I was, because I honestly thought I might catch a little bit of slack on certain things and be told, hey, you have to pull this back a little bit, especially if you want to get a theatrical release. Luckily, I didn't. So, you get to see it the way that, I wanted it done. So if it fails, I fall on the sword. And if it does good, then that's great. But it was never meant to be a movie where everyone can say, oh, I love that. It's definitely a movie where if you can appreciate the humor behind it, and you appreciate good fights, and you appreciate some tension, and you can get the overall tone of the movie, you're going to like it. If you go in thinking it's a very serious movie and, there's, it's every moment is supposed to be taken, not with a chuckle or with all seriousness. And we do have some serious stuff in there. It's a mix. Then, you may have a time with it. You know what I mean? If you think you're going to go see a straight horror movie, you're not going to, enjoy yourself as much as if you go in knowing you're looking at something that's very genre bending, that's very tongue in cheek, that has some serious moments in it. But it's supposed to be a fun movie. And that's what I went out to make.
It doesn't seem like there was a concern on your part or in the writing or anywhere along the way where you guys are like, hey, we're going to lose audience if we do this.
You know what? At the end of the day, I've done a lot of movies. I've been fortunate enough to win an Emmy, for a series that I did. And I feel like at some point, artistically, you have to just say, I want to have fun and do this. And, if it does offend anyone, I apologize. It's not my goal. My goal was to make something that was just very fun and very entertaining. And, and again, I think art is something that's always going to be subjective. Entertainment is going to be subjective. Some people like certain types of things, some people don't. But we definitely didn't go in with the mind of offending people. But we also didn't pull back either. I didn't want to pull back because at the end of the day, even though people may not agree with certain violent elements or say, hey, this is it. I've even read on message boards, people are saying, well, they're taking marriage, which is, supposed to be this sacred thing and making fun of it. And it's not. The movie's actually deeper when you watch it. It's not just about a bride leaving her husband, and there's an understory for why she's doing it. And there's also a women's empowerment thing here when you look at it. And we have a strong female lead who's Ukrainian and who kicks butt, and we have some funny guys who kick butt. So we were trying to have a good time with it.
Great. I got to wrap up, so I will ask you, for those who want to find out more about this film online, is there a website, social media you can let us you can find them on?
Yeah, it's Til Death Do Us Part.movie is the website. Fandango.com has tickets everywhere. AMC.com also, we're in a lot of AMC theaters, but Fandango.com to even the other chains. August 4th, this Friday. We hope everybody spreads the word. It's a small indie film, non-AMPTP. So we're completely independent of the studios, and we ended up getting a release that's in almost every state, and we have several hundred theaters, and we are hoping that everyone will come out and support the film and tell their friends and just have a good time. Go check it out.
Thank you so much. This was great. Good luck with the movie. Congratulations on the movie and getting a release. And if you have another project sometime down the road, please do come back.
Hey, thank you. I will. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.